for Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Let me just get this off. There we go. Perfect. So sorry about that. Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ajit Kumar. I'm a senior officer of research and advocacy at the Digital Empowerment Foundation, and I'd like to welcome you to our first webinar. I'd like to welcome you to our first webinar on for the IVLP films on digital inclusion. We'll be starting with a presentation of the various films in a bit, and we're just getting everyone online, so I'd like to just ask for your patience. I do apologize about this. We're just getting our other speakers online, so we'll take another minute or so, and we'll get back to you. Okay, so now we've gotten rid of all technical malfunctions, and we can start our webinar. I'm so sorry. So, right. The IVLP films are created in collaboration with the American Center, which is a division of the American Embassy in India, and the Digital Empowerment Foundation, and it's produced predominantly by a set of alumni of the IVLP program. The IVLP program, of course, is a leadership program, a visiting leadership program that the U.S. Embassy runs, where individuals from certain countries travel to the U.S. and engage with other leaders and decision makers across the globe, and really engage on various topics. This, of course, this entire endeavor has been supported quite strongly by our friends at Twitter, and I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about our hashtags. So, in case we're taking comments both on the chat, live chat, which you'll find to the right of this window. Apart from that, we also have the hashtag my internet, my right, in one word, to take comments on Twitter. So now I'd just like to go around and quickly introduce all the other participants in our webinar today. So Ishita, we'd like to start with you. Okay, sorry about that. We're still facing some difficulties. Jayanti? while we're getting Ishita up and running, we'll just move on to our other speaker for the day. I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. We are having some large technical disabilities right now. We're not able to get people off mute at this point in time. Just if you give us 1 minute more, we'll be able to. Okay, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I hope everybody can hear me now. Yeah. Okay. So hi. Good afternoon. Good evening, actually. My name is Jayanti, and I welcome you here. And today I'll be speaking about how digital inclusion helps in overall economic, generating economic opportunities and leading to financial inclusion eventually. So I think I'll ask my colleague Ishita, who would now introduce herself. Ishita, if you may.
Yeah, thankfully I'm able to unmute myself now. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. I'm Ishita. I'm a research officer at DEF, and I'll be talking about digital inclusion with respect to specially abled people and how it is different for rural and urban India. I would now like Rajat to take over and start the introduction process.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, there we go. So just to get started, I'd like to talk about digital inclusion as a larger process, and then sort of go to our various speakers. In fact, we have another one of my colleagues joining us. Her name is Shivani. She also works in the research team over here. Unfortunately, she's having power outages at her house, and she's unable to engage with us right now. Whenever she joins, she'll get involved in the webinar. But now, when we talk about digital inclusion, the question really comes up as to what exactly does that mean. Now, it's a relatively newer term. Terms like digital literacy and the digital divide have been in use since the mid 1990s. In fact, where digital literacy is just talking about the ability of individuals to use various digital devices, and of course. The digital divide talks about the difference between what is known as the digital haves and the digital have-nots. So again, individuals who have access to digital technologies and individuals who don't have access to digital technologies. So let's sort of break the concept of inclusion down a little bit, and we look at it from the perspective of three major sort of areas. One is in terms of access. Now, access, of course, is something that is mediated by various factors. In India, we have to acknowledge cultural factors such as caste, even gender is a very big issue, as Ishita and Jayanti and Shivani, my colleague, will be explaining later on, will be exploring later on. Then in terms of availability, it talks about design for inclusion and about public access. So that's really the four major topics that make up access as a whole. Apart from that, we've got adoption, which is the individuals are able to use it. So that's where digital literacy comes in, which is talking about the ability of an individual to actually engage with technologies once the access to that technology has been made available. And finally, and what really differentiates the concept of inclusion from the digital divide and digital literacy is about engagement. It's about individuals who are able to access it, have the skills to access it. But the third and most important part is being able to leverage it appropriately. And that, I think, is a very telling point, because it has its implications in fields that go far beyond just technology. It has its implications on education, has its implications on health, it has its implications on um, public safety, citizen engagement in the political space and civic spaces, as well as quite simply in terms of social connections and social media and socializing online. So just to reiterate the three major components of digital inclusion, one is about access. The three A's is access, adoption, and the application. Right. So now the way that we're going to structure this webinar will be we have my colleague Jayanti, who introduced herself earlier, who will actually be talking a little bit about the way gender has an implication to play with regards to digital inclusion. Then, of course, Ishita, who was also there earlier, will be talking about persons with disabilities and one more topic. And then Shivani, if she gets online, if her problems are sorted, hopefully should be here to talk about the economic processes and other things. Otherwise, I'll take care of that. But just right off the bat, I'd like to ask a question to my panelists here, my fellow colleagues over here. Is that, do you think, barring our own areas aside, it's a personal question, do you genuinely believe that digital inclusion is possible in India? I mean, Prime Minister Modi has, of course, had a huge push on digital inclusion with the entire Digital India program. Then looking at, the digital literacy, the NDLM, the National Digital Literacy Mission, which has, of course, undergone new sort of lease on life in the most recent budget, where they were given a fairly large infusion. But despite all of that, we have significant shortfalls. I mean, I'd just like to share an interesting statistic in terms of adoption of digital technologies. So there's a very beautiful graph in the World Development Report 2016. Unfortunately, I'll try and bring it up later. But the adoption of mobile and mobile broadband, mobile phones, and the internet is actually almost an exponential curve, as opposed to more basic needs as improved water, improved sanitation, sewerage, and healthcare. So and even secondary school enrollment. So it's a very telling statistic that the adoption actually right now for mobile phones is higher, and more people in the world have access to mobile phones than they have access to, say, drinking water or sanitation. So it's a remarkable little statistic. And another one I want to share with you is about, and just to get the conversation started, is the number of offline people in the world, right? India has the largest number. It's 1.063 billion people, and it's a scary number. But what's scarier than that, actually, is on the lines of more than that 1.063 billion people. It's the largest, and it's larger than the next three countries' offline populations combined. So China is about 736 million, Indonesia 210 million, and Pakistan at 162 million. If you add all of these three up, it's just a little more than ours. So it's a really remarkable statistic, and it's something that I quote quite often, and it's something that gets a lot of conversations going. But anyway, I'd like to stop right there, and let's open up the floor. Ishita, would you like to maybe engage on the questions of, do you think digital literacy and digital inclusion is truly possible in the country?
Rajat, honestly speaking, for a country like India, I feel that it will be very difficult to have 100% digital inclusion rate. But I will not deny the fact that we're not reaching there. The convergence may take time, and it may be very, very tedious process and uphill process. But I would say that 100% digital inclusion may not be possible, but 70 or 80% of digital inclusion is definitely what we should aim for. And uh, I'm being very practical. I may sound cynical, but I'm being very practical when I say that 100% may not be possible. But yeah, I'm hopeful that a 70, 80, or even a 90% of inclusion may be possible in the next 10, 15 years.
Thank you very much. Jayanti, would you like to maybe talk about this a little bit from your perspective? So just as a piece of background for everyone, Jayanti is part of a team that looks at the relationship and sort of looks at public access points across the country. We currently have 170 access points in the country. And, yes, Jayanti, you're on.
Okay, but it's gone.
Jayanti, you're on the right thing.
Okay. I actually agree with Ishita that we do have a long way, although we have achieved a certain level, achieved certain targets when it comes to digital inclusion, but there are other things which come with that. Like, for instance, there is we need a proper infrastructure to actually take, it's not just the digital, but we also need certain level of physical infrastructure that needs to be there at place, and looking at the geographical vastness of the country itself, and of course the huge population. Although we have taken huge strides, we still have a long way, but if we stay positive, then I'm sure one day we will be able to say that we have 100% digital inclusion in our country. Uh, I hope it went through.
No, I'm sure it did. Sorry, there might be a little bit of feedback because we're all sort of spread around the same area right now. But yes, and finally my colleague Shivani was able to join us. So what we'll do is we'll probably just jump to Shivani right now and get her to introduce herself, and then sort of see where the conversation goes. So Shivani, just as a matter of fact, when you joined us, we were just having a conversation. I posed a question to Ashita and Jayanti about, is digital inclusion possible, truly possible in this country? Because we've got a remarkable statistic. We've got 1.063 billion people in India who are offline, and that's more than the next three populations in the world together. Because China, Indonesia, and Pakistan, you combine their offline population, it's just a smidge more. Maybe it's 1.065 billion people. So it's quite a remarkable statistic, and we've got this massive push that's happening towards digitization and digital literacy and this entire Digital India program. So the real question is digital inclusion truly possible? Shivani, can you hear me?
Yes, hello everyone.
So yeah, I don't know if you heard my question. I was asking about the question of, is digital inclusion possible? Yeah. Okay, I think we're again having some issues, sadly. Well, this is technology. It's only as good as the fools that operate it. So I guess that has a lot to say about us. But I think what we'll do is, while I wait on word from Shivani on what's happening, let's actually jump to Ishita. And Ishita, why don't you sort of talk about the various mediators of inclusion, particularly with regards to the digital space, and then we can sort of build our conversations from there. Oh yeah, I was saying that why don't you sort of talk about at least a few mediators of digital inclusion, and then sort of we'll see how the conversation goes from there.
About specially able people and what digital inclusion means for them. Now I had prepared a PPT, but I don't know if I can share it or not. But anyhow, so I just would like to start by emphasizing on the fact that it's very, very important for everybody on earth, irrespective of every human being, irrespective of how the person lives or where the person lives or what sort of abilities or disabilities does the person have to access internet. And it becomes very important for um, specially able people to engage with internet, because ICT for them is sort of an extension of their physical body part and provides an opportunity to communicate, gain access, gain education, and to give back something to the society as well. So they are both producers and consumers of technology and information. So it's very important for them to be able to use this platform thoroughly. Um, so let me start by defining disability. So disability, as we all know, is any means of physical, mental, or sensory, visual, or hearing impairment that a person may have. And according to the census 2011, it was revealed that over 2.1% of the population, of the Indian population, is suffering from one or the other kind of disability. It was also revealed that there is more disability in the rural section of the society than in the urban areas. I will not bore you people with the technical aspect of it, but I would really want to share this very informative piece of fact. So there is an initiative called the Web Accessibility Initiative, and they came up with guidelines. So the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C as we call it, adopted this accessibility initiative um, for promoting the use of ICTs for people with special abilities. Um, so web accessibility here would mean that people with special needs can use the web as much as we can use it. They could perceive, understand, navigate, interact on the web, and do everything that we can. Now, these guidelines were also helpful for older people who had certain challenges, basically due to their age. So, if I talk about this, then the Web Content Accessibility Guideline 2.0 has given a wide range of recommendations for making web content more accessible to wider range of people with special abilities, and to make the content more usable to such users. So some of these recommendation some of these recommendation leads us to assertive technologies, such as using touch screen interface or on-screen keyboard or other assertive technologies such as uh, light signaled alert, keyboard filters, braille embossers, on-screen keyboards, trackball, joysticks, touch screens, things like these, which are although available, but they are not readily available, especially in the Indian market. So these are the I would say these are the mediums through which one can connect with the online medium, and use ICT for their own purpose without feeling without feeling a barrier in connection. When we talk about these assertive technologies and other methods, we also need to understand the challenges that are that come, especially for a country like India. Access becomes a very, very big challenge, like Rajesh was talking about. Access especially in the rural part of the country, is very, very limited. The last mile connectivity is almost unavailable in India. The other challenge that a country like India would face is cost. Um, since these technologies are not readily available and there is a demand, the cost automatically goes up. Hence, allowing only a few to avail this technology. Um, Apart from this, lack of information dissemination, so most of the people, most of the specially able people, they are unaware of what kind of technologies are available. So in a country like India, buying a laptop or buying a smartphone is a huge deal, and to get more accessories along with this, to so that you can communicate or use the internet, is a, you know, a far-fetched dream, which is very, very difficult for any middle class person to you know, even think of, because these accessories are very expensive, they are not readily available and they're expensive. So it becomes very important for the government to understand these challenges and work accordingly. Um, I would also like to highlight a few initiatives by the government that has helped the country a lot, and a few policies of the government that has helped the country. Uh, when we talk about policy, the Digital India campaign that the current government has started is both a boon and a bane. I would like to talk about the boon aspect first. For a country like India, where more than 2.1% of the population is uh, especially challenged, I would have thought that there would be more, more uh, policies related to them, but there are a very few with respect to digitalization of India. So one such case study, one of Digital Empowerment Foundation works on a lot of platforms and to promote digital India. So one of the case studies that I can share with you is about e-Mitra Kendra in Rajasthan. These are CSEs, these are common service centers. The scheme was started by the Modi government, and it is under the Department of Electronics and Information Technology. And if you look at the center, it is very, very beneficial, especially for people with disabilities, because it makes their lives much more easier. If we have to look at the same, let me start from the scratch. So there is a scheme wherein people with disabilities get pension. Now, what used to happen before the CSEs came into the picture was that um, their pension used to get credited to them, it used to get delivered to them through postman or through the village panchayat head, or somebody in person. Why this was a problem was because there were middlemen who would ask for their share to give you your pension. So, in order to eradicate the middleman business, the government started providing the pension through bank account. So, it will get automatically credited to your bank account. Now, how these common service centers came into picture was that they started they started facilitating this transfer. So so there the person could come, apply for a bank account. Once the bank account is open, once the papers are in place, they would get their pensions every month without any middleman budging it. Apart from such schemes, there is another scheme by the government of India uh, called Simple Eye mobile app, which has been recently launched by the Ministry of State for Rural Development. And this app is based on Braille technology, assisting visually impaired in browsing the internet and engaging in chat using electronic mail and other such documents. As per an update, over 70 visually impaired students in JNU have already started using this application. So it's very evident from all these examples that like even Rajat was talking about how digitally inclusive are we, but if we look at the fact if every section of the society is digitally included, I would say it's not, because it'll obviously take a lot of time and lot of effort by the government to make sure that uh, every section, every strata of the society is included in this in this digital India mission, and it is an uphill task. That's how I would like to end the discussion on digital inclusion for specially able. Over to
Okay.
you, Rajat.
Thanks so much, Ishita. Okay, so Shivani's joined us again. We're just going to see if she is able to connect with us properly. Shivani?
Hello, everyone.
There we go. Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks so much for joining us. All good on your end?
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
Okay, so thank you again for joining us, and today we are talking about digital inclusion. I am going to specifically focus on giving you a very brief introduction to how structural inequalities that exist in our society create barriers to access technology and internet for women specifically. So we see access as a step, as an enabler for making women participate and making them and enabling them to come online and exercise their freedom of expression and freedom of information, disseminate information, etc. So this is going to be very brief, but I'm sure in the next sessions and in the coming weeks we are going to talk more about these issues, and please keep being tuned in for that. So I'll start with a bit of data to give you a bit of introduction to this. Only 22% of the adult population in India uses the internet compared to the global average, which is 67%. And less than 25% women are internet users in India. Now, studies have showed time and time again that having smartphones increases chances of internet use. But because of the kind of inequalities we have in our society, what happens is women are not able to practice autonomy, and they're not encouraged in our society to pursue self-growth, even in educated families, even in today's time. So what happens is their autonomy, their choices are heavily controlled by men. So for example, primarily men acquire smartphones in households, for example, and women are having handed down usual feature phones, which is also a good thing because they at least have some sort of access to technology, but then they're not able to realize their full potential to use the technology and full potential of the technology which can be useful to them. So another example of such a situation could be parents are not letting their daughters use smartphones because they think that their daughters will be involved in unwanted romantic exploitations, so they want to protect them. And recently in 2016 itself, Haryana Khap Panchayats are the village local governance bodies. They had banned mobile phones for young girls for the same reason. Um, so what happens is we all know this, that women's existence is defined as a source of support for her family and the well-being of the family. They're not supposed to go after their personal growth and exercise their rights in the modern world and use technology, for example. So to give you a little different perspective to this as well, women face greater gender-related discrimination in developing countries than their counterparts in developed countries. What this leads to is women end up being unpaid family workers. It is not realized and recognized as formal work, which again traps them traditionally in family roles and the lack of basic digital literacy skills that could allow them to achieve more of their potential, for example. Um, Another factor that creates a hindrance for accessing technology for women is access to education, which continues to be a great barrier. Well, so in India, for example, 51% of women can read and write compared to 75% of men. And without this fundamental skill, the internet and the benefits of the online world will remain out of reach. A major digital divide based on gender is emerging in India, which is partly attributed to the constraints that women face in accessing education due to lack of time to attend school, familial and household duties, and socio-cultural norms that give a low priority to education. It has been observed again, time and again, the extent to which women exercise autonomy in using the web significantly influences the extent to which they can access it. And there are several factors that contribute to a woman's autonomy. For example, location. If internet access is only available outside the house and the user has to travel long distances to an internet enabled facility, this is likely going to reduce their potential to use the online environment, and considering the situation of our country, it's fairly unsafe for women to go out of their houses, especially in rural areas. Now, these are the kind of things that basically give you a picture of involuntary exclusion. So women don't really have a role in this to play. It is all created by the society, and it is involuntary exclusion that's being faced by them. But there's another aspect to it, and that we can maybe call as voluntary exclusion, so which is based on the years and years of conditioning and internalizing the fact that I'm supposed to not do this, and this is not something that is useful for me. So women tend to sort of limit themselves, so that I can call voluntary exclusion, and this is a consequences of the existing, again, the structural inequalities that we were just discussing. So women believe that the internet is not appropriate for them, or that their families would disapprove, and that engaging online would not be beneficial regardless. So again, it is believed that exposure to alternative perspectives, lack of exposure, to the alternative perspectives reinforces the conservative gender roles. So it's interesting to note here is that even internet is an alternative space to access other alternative perspectives. So this is a very important aspect that we need to look into when we are trying to have a dialogue, have a conversation about this issue, and trying to find solution about this. That how do you deal with such problems, that if you do not have access to such spaces, you cannot have access to perspectives, alternative perspectives, which again enables women to see a different side of the world and to make them realize that this is important and why this is important. So these are the problems that I've just discussed very briefly, but there are efforts that are being taken by the civil society, the general public, and the government. For example, in 2007, Feminist Approach to Technology project was founded in New Delhi, and they aim, basically their initiative addresses one of the biggest hurdles women face in internet use and access, which is cultural stigma. So this program has helped girls realize that it is possible to go to college and get scholarships. The internet also allows women to reduce the stigma they experience and give voice to their own concerns while retaining a degree of anonymity. So that's another a very interesting aspect of internet, that it enables women to maintain their anonymity while they're exercising their rights, and which is very important, and this has to be understood by all of us when we are trying to find solutions to these issues. For example, one of the participants recently in Feminist Approaches to Technologies trainings, one of the participants shared her experience as a survivor of domestic violence. And by speaking out about violence against women, an opportunity to counter oppression by men is created, and it can be a very empowering tool for women to deal with such issues. This is another Digital Empowerment Foundation. In fact, has initiatives that are also trying to do similar things. For example, we had initiated a program in 2014 and 15 in collaboration with Google, which was called Helping Women Go Online. So I think more than 50,000 women were trained all over the country in using general basic social media, sending emails, communicating, making Skype calls. And these are the kind of training programs that we are also going to take further, and it's something that can other people also do. One more aspect that I would like to highlight here is the economic aspect. So, in today's time, it is very critical for companies and for the governments to bridge a gap between the skills that they need to stay competitive and the talent that is available. And this can be bridged through digital fluency. Uh, an aspect of digital fluency can also relate to, and I would like to highlight this here, is that the major content that is available online and the content or the interface that is available to access technology is primarily in English, and it does not necessarily have to be like that. So even women or men for that matter who are literate and but not equipped with necessary digital skills are not going to be able to access internet. So it is important when we take efforts in including and making people participate in the technological revolution in our times, that the content that is available, the interface, the software, the hardware has to be user accessible, like Ashita was also mentioning, and the content has to be something that relates to them, something that is useful to them. So if a person who's literate but is not fluent with English will not still be able to access technology or access the internet. So we need to make content very useful and relevant to the user. So that's another thing. And in studies, it has been found, for example, that even if men and women have equal amount of digital fluency, if we can call that, women are better at using those digital skills to gain more education and to find work and find better higher education opportunities. So I think we need to really realize that these are the gaps, and this is how we need to go about it. And collaborative work for this is very important from civil society, from people, and from the government as well. One more important and last thing that I would like to say is that the government is making efforts, and it is good and we appreciate that. But the problem is that the implementation has to be realistic. So it does not limit to laying cables and putting up systems, but it has to be about creating awareness and making content useful for the people, and bridging the gap of safety, for example, for women. So creating a center which is far away from their home is not going to be suitable for a woman to be able to access technology. So yeah, the last thing I would like to say is that there are efforts, but the efforts have to be implemented very realistically, and we all have to work together for this. So Rajat, to answer your question or to sort of throw some light on it for the next webinars also, I would like to say that it is possible, and we should work more on this, and we need to have more dialogue and constructive conversations around these issues that I've just talked about. So I will stop here, and thanks a lot for listening to me.
Thanks, Shivani, for that. That was a very, very concise and I think quite thorough approach to the various mediators of inclusion. And I just want to highlight one or two things that you mentioned that are particularly important. Was about the relevance of content. Right, about the linguistic barriers that individuals face. There's again, sorry, as a researcher, I'm prone to giving statistics out. So one of the things that I read was, again, yes, Hindi is on the top 4 languages spoken by a sheer number in the world, but there is no Indian language in the top 15 languages on the web. So which I thought was a remarkable statistic, because English is probably, I think it's the 3rd or maybe the 5th most widely spoken language in the world, and it's the most common language on the net, which is something, of course, that needs to be looked at. So relevant content, and not just accessible content in terms of language, but I think also it has to be appropriate content. So it's about getting the right information at the right time in the right language. So just as an addition. But now let me jump across to Jayanti, who of course works in our CIRC team, our field team, and she has beautiful case stories to sort of explore and talk about. So Jayanti, why don't you take it away?
Shivani, for sharing your insights. In fact, whatever you spoke, my topic is very much related to whatever we spoke in our previous webinars and sessions. So I will be talking about digital inclusion and how, I'll be talking about economic opportunities and how they can be generated through digital inclusion. So I believe that digital inclusion in fact has a direct relation with generating economic opportunities and furthermore to that rendering overall financial security to the citizens, especially those living in the rural parts of the country. So one cannot stress enough that the government allocates a large sum of, a large amount of sum towards schemes, especially to financially support and empower the deprived sections of the society. For example, in the Union Budget 2016-17, a sum of 38,500 crore was allocated towards the Manrega Act, that is the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural yeah, I'm sorry, so the Manrega Act. So, but we can never be sure as to how much actually is reaching out to the laborer working on the ground. So, there are always issues like, for example, corruption. There are problems of mediators, that whatever fund which should actually reach that laborer is actually taken as commission in between. So just to tackle such kind of a scenario, we can talk about common service centers. Ishita also talked about them in her part. So the common service centers are part of a program by the Department of Electronics and Information Technology, that's DATI. Although there are like a number of schemes and services that are introduced to benefit the socially excluded or the neglected sections of the society, whether it be disability pension or widow pension, or say the Palanhar Yojana to financially support the orphans, we cannot be sure whether the funds are actually reaching out to those sections. So these CSCs, so these are which are common service centers. These are single point model centers that provide facilities for multiple transactions at a particular geographical location. By geographical location, I mean that these CSCs help in facilitating government schemes and services both at both that are launched by the central government as well as the state government. So these CSCs, they have different names in different states. So in Rajasthan they are called E-Mitras, in Andhra Pradesh they are called Me Seva, and in Madhya Pradesh they are called MP Online. All of them actually have the same purpose. So basically these are actual physical centers that provide facility for delivery of schemes and services that are launched by central as well as the state governments to the rural and remote locations where availability of computer or the internet is negligible or almost absent. So basically CSCs help provide access to these schemes and services to the people living in rural areas. So we have a program so Digital Empowerment Foundation has a program, and its name is Suchna Seva. So the Suchna Seva program is basically launched in order to provide basic information to those who actually need it for their development. So we know that people living in remote areas, inaccessible areas, they are mostly deprived of the information and the knowledge that they need for their own development. They are socially excluded. So what these Suchna Seva Kendras do, they provide access to such information that they need for their progress. So CSCs so we have so these Suchna Seva Kendras actually help, which are present in 5 states in the country. So they help towards facilitating overall functions of these CSCs by providing support. Talking more about it and that how they support functions of these CSCs and how they also support towards delivery of these government schemes and services to the needy. So basically, one example, they in fact use multiple tools which are ICT as well as non-ICT. So one of the tools that they use is the Suchna Vahan. So Suchna Vahan is basically a digitally equipped van that travels across remote corners of the country. So each Suchna Vahan is actually equipped with an LCD screen So an LCD screen is attached to the back of these vans, and these vans run videos related to government schemes and services. So these videos that are played on these LCD screens actually invite the community that lives around that region, and it becomes like an open community screening. So during that community screening, that screening then eventually also acts like a community meeting, where our Sushna Seva fellows, they identify people that can be prospective beneficiaries, that can avail various economic benefits. So after these people are identified, they are then their applications are then registered at the Sushna Seva Kendras. So we are pretty much active in Rajasthan, these Sushna Seva Kendras, so which are called e-mitras. So basically, these beneficiaries are then registered at those Sushna Seva, at those e-mitras online. And after registering them online, the follow-up is also done online. And since in order to avail these schemes, one needs to have a bank account. So whenever the fund that comes back after registering, it goes directly to the person's bank account. So this breaks down the system of mediators and middlemen. So the amount which is actually released by the government reaches the right person. So in this way, we can say that because of digital inclusion, not only the corruption has gone down, and at the same time, since the funds go directly to the bank accounts, it has also encouraged people to open bank accounts. This has also contributed to overall financial inclusion. I'm sorry, I'll just say that again. So not only these CSCs have helped in eliminating mediators and then corruption, but it has also encouraged people to open bank accounts. So people have become more aware about this fact that they should have a bank account, and it has led to financial inclusion. So I would like to share a case story in these regards. So in Okay, so this case story is from Rajasthan. So there was a lady, her name was Antro Devi, and she was a resident of Segri village in district Badmer of Rajasthan. So Badmer is also a district where we have our Sushna Seva Kendras and our Sushna Seva fellows, which work very closely with these e-mitras and CSEs. So Antro Devi, so this is how a story goes. So she got married 55 years ago. So only 2 months after her marriage, her husband passed away. But then she gathered strength and resumed her life. Then she started living with her brother and sister-in-law, and life was going like that. But she always felt that she's like an additional financial burden on her brother's family. So although she was living her life, but she thought that the love and affection which her family is giving her, she needs to give it back to them. At the same time, she also needs to financially support herself. So when she heard about the widow pension scheme, she went barefoot to the village panchayat to avail the scheme. However, there was no guidance or there was no assistance, and something happened that her application never really got submitted. So one day in one of the community screenings on the LCD screens, the Sushna Seva fellows actually met Antro Devi, and they came to know about her problem, that this is the problem that she's facing, and she at that time she was already a senior citizen and she was not getting her pension. So they heard her problem, and so they thought, yeah, we can help her. So what they did, they helped her fill up her online application form at the e-mitra, and that's how she submitted the form there. And very soon she started receiving a pension of rupees 750 every month now. So with the help of digital process of application, she can now receive an assured pension. And the process was also pretty quick. Like earlier, she was not even able to submit her application, but now she gets assured pension. And at the same time, a person like her, you cannot really expect a senior citizen to actually fill up an online form and go through all of this. But she could actually do that. The process was shortened and it was very much convenient for her, and now she can get her pension. So there is one problem which we face here. Although we have these online services, through which people can avail for this kind of financial support, but we still don't have the kind of skill which people should have to actually avail for these services and schemes. Like for example, take example of Antro Devi. She was not digitally sound, she did not know how to use the computer, so she needed somebody's help to actually fill up her form in some way. So although we have got our services online, but at the same time we also should have a certain amount of training, through which people can actually avail for the benefits on their own without taking anybody's support. So that is one thing that I would like to add. Besides benefits through schemes and services, I also believe that connecting our artisans and our craftsmen on ground to the internet has a potential to bring about a remarkable change in their economic conditions. For example, by providing them training on e-commerce and online platforms, it will not only help them take their product online, probably to the global platform, but also they'll be able to expand their consumer base, and and they will be able to flourish. They'll be able to find partners. They'll be able to grow. So I believe that besides economic benefits in terms of schemes and services, we also need to educate people as to with the use of various internet tools and digital tools, so that they can reap their benefits, and with the help of that create an economically sustainable environment for their own businesses. Uh, so yeah, I would like to conclude here and give it to Rajat after that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jayati. It was a remarkable conversation, and I think some of the points that you've highlighted and some of the use cases of individuals truly understanding, and sort of overcoming barriers of access and barriers with regards to this Manrega case that you mentioned about the way that this lady who was a widow tried to get her pension, but then couldn't do it the traditional way. Then through the help of at least some level of digital inclusion and access, was then able to sort of appropriately get her entitlements and schemes. So I mean, we don't have much time left, and at this point in time, I don't believe we have any major comments on our conversation today. But so I have a couple of closing remarks to make. But before I do that, I'd actually like to open it up once again to all our speakers one by one. So, Eshita, if you'd like to just sort of make any closing remarks and just last minute thoughts based on what Shivani and Eshita have also spoken about, please go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rajat. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I would firstly like to correct a fact that I had stated wrong, that CSCs were opened by the Modi government. Apparently, they were not, and they came into the country in 2006 when there was a different government. And secondly, I would also like to highlight the fact that there were a lot of overlapping areas where all these issues related to digital inclusion the challenges were overlapping. For example, linguistic issues, logistical barriers, um, then material related to pertaining to maybe a particular gender, or material available on the web related to a particular gender or related to a particular um, you know disabled, specially abled person. So information constraint, basically. Things like these were overlapping irrespective of which sector we were talking about, be it gender, be it financial or economical issues, be it the rural India, in the rural India or in the urban area. or be it especially able for people who are specially able. So these things, a few things were overlapping throughout. So I think if we concentrate on such challenges and try to eradicate these challenges, it will become easier for the government as well as for us to access the web per se. And of course, the government cannot do this single-handedly. They need our support. CSOs can help. NGOs and other private or government institution can help. Bhagidari, the public-private partnership, we can partner together to solve these issues, and firstly to highlight these challenges to the government and then to look at solving these issues. Uh, that would be my closing remark. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. We'll go now to Shivani. If you're there, any closing remarks?
Um, Yes, once again, I would like to just emphasize on the fact that a lot of collaborative strategy approach is required at this point. And to add to that, also, I see a lot of enthusiasm in the youth these days in bringing people, more and more people online, and not just women. I was talking about women, but not just women, even older generation on the internet, and making them aware about the usefulness of the technology. And because we do realize, and the youth realizes, that there are going to be emerging opportunities as well as challenges, so I think we need to leverage upon the enthusiasm of the youth, and the people who are working day and night to make digital inclusion possible, and as well as the collaborative approach that I would that is my favorite. So yes, that's about it, and I would like to thank everyone for joining us for this.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Jayanti, anything from your side?
To say that
One second. We are just putting you off mute. Yeah, there you go.
yeah, I just want to say that of course, besides all the challenges that we have with regards to whether we have a content which has a connect with the crowd in India, and at the same time there are logistics problems, but at the same time I feel that somehow digital inclusion has the power to shrink the urban and rural divide. There was a time when it seemed that only people living in the urban parts of the country had a way to voice their opinions, but through digital inclusion, what has happened that even people living in the rural areas now have a platform to speak up. So I would like to add to all of this that besides economic inclusion and of course gender divide, which will shrink, but at the same time it also shrinks up the rural and urban divide, and also divide between the rich and the poor, and brings everyone on a common sort of platform. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much to everyone here. Just as the moderator, I'd like to just close up and just have a couple of things to say. So right at the start, I mentioned three major mediators of digital inclusion, which was about the access, which is about the availability, and then of course the adoption, and finally about the application. And I think that almost everything that we've talked about today revolves around those three core concepts. And it would be an interesting thing to see how, of course, this government and whichever one the next is also engages on inclusion, given the push towards digitization and towards greater penetration, public access of technology across the country. Just as a matter of fact, there are some interesting case stories that Jayanti mentioned. Those of you joining us on live stream, on the top right, there should be a little eye that you can click, and what we do for people on who are watching this later is that we get them to pop up, so you should see them right about here. Finally, we have, this is one of, as I mentioned right at the start, this is one of the 5 webinars that we'll be doing on various topics. We have one the same time next week, so probably about 4 to 5:30 next Wednesday, which is the 7th September. And the topic, of course, that we'll be looking at is on freedom of expression. The film that this webinar is based on, I leave a link in the description below. And you should also see a pop-up over here, so you can always just select one of the two, and you can have a look at the film and have a look at the various other case stories that similar to what Jayanti was talking about. So once again, thank you very much, Ishita, Jayanti, Shivani. Thank you for taking the time out for this. And I know we'll have at least one or two of you next week, and then we have maybe some guests coming in to talk on, to discuss and have a quick conversation on freedom of expression, looking at the way freedom of expression is now evolving and changing in the country. So thank you, everyone. This is just, again, I'd like to say my thanks to the American Center for providing us an opportunity to, of course, make the films and host this webinar. And of course, I'd like to thank Bijo, this fine gentleman sitting behind me, who's actually been engaging on Twitter. We have a few other of our colleagues who are also engaging on Twitter. And I would encourage you all who are watching the stream after its closing to please engage with us. We're at DEF India, and the hashtag that we're using for this and all our endeavors looking at digital inclusion is hashtag #MyInternetMyRight. I leave a quick screen on our email ID so that if anyone feels the need to contact us, they are they can engage with us over email. And once again, I'm just going to get that up and running. There we go. So yes, so yeah, as I said, thank you very much. You've all been lovely. And Ishita, Jayanti, Shivani, thank you very much once again. And we look forward to having a chat next week. Right, bye-bye.
Thank you, Rajat, and thanks to our viewers for being so patient. We'll make sure that our next webinar is really, really informative and very, very engaging as well. Thank you so much.
I'm sure it will be. Okay, bye-bye.